Reality Check with Craig Price.
Oh, right, sorry.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me! Craig, shut up.
Hey, I need you guys to do these things.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump. So it's the Memorial Day edition of Reality Check with Craig Price. Hope you did something over the weekend to honor our men and women who give their lives to protect us and allow us to do the crazy, goofy, stupid things that we do on a daily basis. I mean, just think, in some countries, the fact that I'm doing this podcast would be illegal. I know some of you are thinking this is probably a sin against nature as it is, but we have to be thankful, and I hope you took time out this weekend not just to take the day off, but to thank the men and women who serve our country. I certainly have respect for them because I know for a fact that they do things that I know I could never do. I wouldn't make it out of boot camp. I honestly couldn't. So the fact that they're out there spending years, if sometimes going back over and over again, now it being wartime, which has been wartime for 10 years, and I think that needs to come to an end hopefully soon. But for years, they're going back and serving this country, putting their lives on the line. I know it's something that I don't think I have in me, so I definitely make sure that I take time to respect the men and women who do that. So if we keep that in mind, I'm really excited that we have Charles Justiz as our guest today, former Air Force pilot, a test pilot for NASA. Not only did he test these amazing machines and fly these amazing jets, but he also trained a lot of the astronauts that ended up flying in the shuttle. And then, when you throw all that together, not only has he been a test pilot, he's trained other astronauts. He's come out and written a book called Specific Impulse. And I'll be honest with you, the book is really good. It's actually a very good book. This is not one of these paid endorsements. I got the book. I actually went out and got the book on my own, because we're both Houston authors. Our books came out around the same time. His came out September of last year. Mine came around in October, and I read it. I like science fiction. It's very cinematic. As you read it, it's very much like a movie. Now, it's very much like a movie written by an engineer as well, because it's also very technical, and we'll get into that when I talk to Charles. But it's actually a really good book. You can pick it up at Amazon.com. You can, contact the show, Craig at SpeakerCraigPrice.com. I'll get you in contact and put you on the right path to get that book. But it's something you should pick, especially with the summer coming up. It's definitely worth the time. And I wanted to find out about the person who wrote the book. So if you don't know, he's also married to Dana Steele, who was last week's guest. So I was able to kill two birds with one stone. You get two great guests last week and now this week. And I really hope you enjoy it. If you like Charles, and I know you will, this will be a great interview. It's a very interesting man who's done a lot of interesting things. If you really like it, pick up the book, Specific Impulse. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Justiz.
So we're going to have a bunch of meetings on aviation safety.
Oh,
and, yeah.
So you specialize in safety?
In
aviation, but
aviation safety.
Doesn't Sully?
Sullenberg?
He did that before he crashed.
He actually had a company on the side from his U.S. Air thing.
His U.S. Air thing?
Yeah.
Just his casual U.S. Air thing?
Yeah.
So I'm here with Charles Justiz. Charles is an author of Specific Impulse. I even get it wrong right off the bat, which I have been reading, but I did not read the ending because I don't want to give it away. But I was glad to get you on the show because you're a very interesting person. You're an engineer, which is classically not a creative, quote unquote, creative industry, even though you guys do a lot of magic in engineering. But you ended up doing a science fiction novel, which is probably one of the more imaginative and creative genres you can get into.
Yeah, I thought so too.
So you kind of go to the extremes where you applied a lot of that to your engineering and you got a PhD, don't you?
A PhD.
So I should be calling you Dr. Charles Justiz.
Yeah, thermophysics and plasma dynamics.
Oh my God.
Yes.
And what does that apply to?
Well, it was space physics, specifically bodies in space. What does the plasma around the spacecraft do? What does it do on re-entry? It was pretty involved.
So for us dummies, that's the orange stuff glowing on the outside when it comes re-entry.
Yeah, pretty long orange stuff.
Yeah, and so is that something that you always dreamed of doing and getting into space technology, or was that just something that you fell into as you were doing your engineering?
No, I was doing the engineering work, the doctoral work, as part of a fellowship program through NASA, and then I came to this problem, and I'm not really about doctorates and masters. I'm more about solving problems. I like to solve problems, and this was a good one. And it hadn't been touched before because it was so complicated. And so I said, well, that's perfect for me because you can't get it wrong. Because you're the first guy.
Yeah, when you're first, when you're the innovator, you're not screwing things up. You're learning. Right. You're going.
Everybody will come back later and go, oh no, he should have done it this way. So that's okay with me.
So you have a lot of Minnesotans working with you?
Oh, yes. Sure.
So, but what was the reason that you wanted to get into engineering in the first place?
Well, I graduated from the Air Force Academy.
Oh, there you go.
Aerospace engineering did not exist when I graduated. That's how old I am. So it was aeronautical engineering. That's my degree. And have always been interested in engineering of one form or another. And if it flies, I'm twice as interested.
Because you are a pilot.
I was a research pilot for 30 years.
And what's the difference between a regular pilot and a research pilot?
A research pilot's a test pilot.
Oh.
You fly research aircraft. It's aircraft that aren't certificated by a rigorous process by the FAA. They're not safe like airliners and stuff. They're a little tougher to fly. They require a little more focus.
Kind of like a Chuck Yeager situation.
It's a lot like a Chuck Yeager situation.
There you go. So I want you're burying the lead. You're a test pilot, and he's like, oh no, thermodynamics. No, so you did that for how long were you?
30 years with NASA. I was a test pilot in the Air Force for 3 years as well before that.
What kind of nerves does that cause after the fact?
Oh, if you do it right, it just takes regular nerves. All the work is done on the ground, believe it or not. Now you get surprised every once in a while in the air, but the surprises should be what we call the small surprises. That I expected that surprise sort of thing.
It's a calculated risk.
It is a lot of calculated risk, and you absolutely do not jump into these things like they show in the movies. Even Chuck Yeager stepped up very slowly to a very difficult point.
Yeah, because I would imagine that this rigorous testing just to be considered a test pilot, because there's a regular pilot that's going to be in the U.S. Air Force, and then the test pilots are going to be a little bit above average, I'm going to assume?
Well, they take it, I wouldn't say that necessarily. You go through different classes, let's say. You've already been a fighter pilot or whatever kind of pilot you were. They'll send you, after all of that training, they'll send you to even more flight test training, which is flight test. So that's quite a bit.
And so you did that for 3 years, and then your time was up, so to speak.
It was a decision point. It was 1980, and the shuttle was just starting. Hadn't flown yet. It was just starting up, and the Air Force actually looked kind of like a dead end at that time. The Jimmy Carter years killed all the programs over there, and I wanted to stay in the Air Force. But then you look around, and you say, "My gosh, here's a bright future for the space shuttle." So I got the opportunity to jump ship, and I did.
So you started right at near the beginning of the program, not necessarily the design, because that was the first was like 81 was the first flight.
81 was the first flight,
yes.
But they were doing approach and landing tests with the Enterprise drop tests off the 747 before that.
But you started right before they actually made the first launch. So you were at the kind of not the ground floor, but the first floor at least, or the second floor.
I was there before first flight.
Oh, cool.
So I got to train all the astronauts that have flown, including STS-1.
Did you try to become an astronaut once you
interviewed 4 times? Finally got kicked out of consideration with kidney stone.
Oh man!
Darn the luck! Missed it by 3 millimeters.
But that's kind of cool that you get to spend a lot of time with the astronauts.
Yeah.
Because not only you're a pilot, but now you've got this engineering background to at least help design some new things.
Oh, absolutely. And what's fun at NASA is, and you were asking about where the book came from. It's thinking outside the box a lot, and NASA does that. They've got some really brilliant guys and girls, I shouldn't say guys, troops that go out there and they just say, well, let's try this, and nobody comes up to them and says, oh no, that's been tried before, we've tried that before, done before. No, they say, yeah, okay, give it a shot, and some of those things are brilliant that absolutely change the way we do business, and so I love working with an organization like that.
Yeah, because and right now they're kind of downsizing, and there's a lot of issues. We're only 3 miles from Johnson Space Center as we speak today.
Yeah.
And living in the Houston area, it's one of the few places where you can be sitting in a restaurant and someone's going, "Hey, it's not rocket scientist." No, it is. That's the guy right there. He's a rocket scientist. He is a rocket scientist, like yourself.
Yeah, the other thing is, it's not so hard as landing on the moon. Well, ask that guy because he's been there twice. Yeah, so it's a completely different kind of environment down here.
Yeah, because I walk into my post office and there's a signed picture of one of the astronauts. I can't remember the name at the moment, but I've always had since I was young, and we talked about this briefly before we came on, is that I grew up in Concord, New Hampshire, which is the capital of New Hampshire, but it's also the hometown of Krista McAuliffe.
That's right.
And my brother had her for social studies, and that whole town lived in kind of we embraced that whole space discovery situation as soon as we found out that she was going to be. It became such a part of our culture. Uh-huh. There's a whole generation of kids there that just in Concord that understand the sacrifice that goes along with the space program, that I don't think a lot of people understand what goes in and the blood and sweat and tears that go into what you guys do.
Yeah, of course, Krista paid the ultimate price. Bless her heart for she was lost on our first shuttle accident on Challenger. Lost her and lost a group of friends there. But she got into it. I mean, up to her elbows. She hit the ground running when she got here to NASA, and was head and shoulders above the rest of her group. She and Barbara Morgan. Barbara, of course, eventually flew from Idaho, not from Concord, unfortunately.
But this goes back to where you were talking about calculated risk, because if you think about the expense and the danger and all the things that are happening, and then you think about, well, how many incidents have there been? Yes, there have been two major ones that I can remember, Columbia and Challenger.
Correct.
But that's, out of all the missions, that's especially when they're sitting on tons of explosives.
Yeah, about 4 million pounds of explosives.
The safety record's amazing.
Yes. It, if we had to design the space shuttle today, we wouldn't design it that way. A lot of people ask me that when I give talks around the country, and I go, of course not. We've learned so much since then. So, of course, we design it differently. That we design out the problems that we have uncovered by flying this vehicle. So I think every time the thing flies is just a marvel to me. Being a research pilot and knowing the engineering risks and tasks that go into it is just beyond belief. They've done a great job.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people recognize that fact. I think it actually gets to the point where they did this with the original Apollo. The first couple flights, everybody was surrounded televisions, and then in the late 60s and they just kind of became run of the mill. And I don't think people really understand the dangers. Despite the fact they go in and all this calculation, all this hard work, I don't think they understand the dangers that are really involved.
Well, yeah, the people have I think a limited understanding of all the risks. I think that's partly NASA's fault. NASA does not do a good job of communicating. They have a good communication group, but they're restricted from communicating, and it drives me crazy sometimes. So it takes some of the more vocal folks like myself to go out there and give speeches and say, no, this is tough. When Apollo 13 exploded, we almost lost them. You've seen the great movie that those guys did, Ron Howard, Tom Hanks. And when they broke into the normal programming, reruns of I Love Lucy, by the way, they got tons of phone calls complaining that, you're breaking into, my normal programming for this.
Yeah, because I'm sure in their mind it's more like breaking into, I don't know, like Friends or American Idol to tell somebody there's a flat tire on the highway.
That's exactly right. It'd become old news by then. Oh yeah, they're going to the moon. So what?
Yeah,
we've done it twice before.
And I noticed that kind of the desire to go places, because I know George Bush said he wanted to go to Mars a couple years ago, and I don't know if that was an honest intent or that was just a political thing to kind of, hey, we're going to do this to try to get people to think about something else.
Yeah. Well, usually what I do is I say, well, how much money was behind that promise?
Yeah.
$0. That gives you an idea.
And I understand that there's budgetary concerns in almost everything.
Sure.
But the fact that they're taking money away from NASA, I mean, I honestly believe that's because I'm also a geek and a nerd. I also believe that our future is not necessarily always going to be right here on Earth. I think that, we may have to go at least have people someplace else, like on Mars or on the moon, or just
all your eggs should not be in one basket.
There you go. See, I talk about negativity. I love that you find it. You can't. We're kind of ruining the place we've got. It's kind of like living in a house that someone bought for you, and then you realize that you rented it to some weird neighbors who smoke pot, and they're ruining it. And it's like, well, do we want to keep that house, or maybe we want to build some more houses?
Well, and there's if you knew as much about space physics as I did, you'd probably be a lot more worried also, and if you don't think so, just ask a dinosaur.
Well, because asteroids that are hitting us and all those things?
Asteroids, there's the top 10 things that can kill us are overdue to kill us already. And I don't want to be a negativist, but
no, you go right ahead. That's my wheelhouse. Please, I love it. That's great. I appreciate that. You're bringing valid points to the surface that other people are ignoring.
Yeah, so you've got, of course, getting hit by a big rock. We have no clue where all these rocks are. Well, how many of them are there? Well, there's about 80,000, let's say, in near-Earth orbit that come close. How close do they come to us? Oh, inside the orbit of the moon. What?
And what bothers me is that does happen because every once in a while CNN will say on Thursday, it'll be like on a Monday, on Thursday, this particular huge, massive 2-mile rock is going to pass by.
Yep.
We only had 3 days notice?
Yeah, well, that's just it. We don't know. We're not looking for them. We don't have a handle on it. And that's just one of maybe 10 things that 9 of them are more likely than getting splattered by a rock. So, space is a very, very nasty place. We've been on this thing. We've been cognizant. Our written history is what, call it 5,000 years. It's nothing. It's not even half a heartbeat in the geological time or astrological time. It's ridiculous for us to think that we are doing well with respect to all the threats that are out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially with 4 or 5 billion years old.
Yeah. And
we are like a second in that. Yeah. If it was an hour long, if the Earth was an hour, we'd be less than a second.
Less than a second. Yeah.
And so now. The fun thing about you were at NASA for 30 years.
Yeah.
And was it all space shuttle related, or was it?
It was all research pilot work.
Okay, so you were now.
Well, except for when I was, of course, I was gone for a while for the fellowship. I got my doctorate through the University of Houston at the Space Vacuum. Yeah, go Cougs. And so that was a little bit of a timeout, but that was kind of funny because you get a fellowship from NASA. They basically pay for everything. And I was accepted to, MIT and, Stanford and everything. I'm going, man, I'm going to get myself a nice degree out of this, and I'll learn something. And my boss looks at the list and goes, hey, Charlie, I noticed that, and you got University of Houston. And he starts talking about Space Vacuum Epitaxy Center. I go, yeah, they're pretty smart. They're doing some good space work. He goes, if you stay in town, I'll keep you curtain in the T-38. And that was like throwing meat to a lion.
Explain the T-38.
It's the small supersonic trainer that we have to keep the astronauts in the spaceflight readiness training program. So he would keep me flying in that. That was just mean. That was underhanded of him.
So he got you on your favorite toy.
Yeah. He says, if you stay here in town and I can keep my hooks in you, he knew better, because if I would have gotten out, I probably would not have stayed with the Johnson Space Center. But because of that, I stayed close by. And as soon as I got out of there, out of the doctorate program, came right back and was doing different work, but still flying airplanes, which was great.
Okay, so but these are the supersonic.
Well, no, I flew
this tester, is that the one that goes like? Well, it's like real small, isn't it?
It's the small two-place is the T-38. I flew the T-38. I flew the Vomit Comet. Sorry about that.
No, go right ahead. I was going to ask you about that, and then like I said, I want to get some of this astronaut stuff out of the way, and then we'll move on to the.
Yeah, I flew the. Zero-G airplane, the Vomit Comet.
But how does that make you feel as a pilot?
You don't feel a thing.
Because you know it's going to happen.
No, well, you're driving, so it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
I was a captain on that, so all the it's really a ballet up there with 3 people working very closely together. But by the time you're finished, you're going from well below the stall speed. The stall speed is the speed that the wings can actually lift the airplane at 1G, and you're way below that. Of course, you're at 0G, so you're not asking them to do anything. But if you had to fly the airplane, it's not going to fly. It refuses to. And then you go right to the maximum speed that the designer said you're allowed to do, and you go within 30 seconds you're there. So you go from no speed to max speed to no speed to max, and you're going from 1.8 Gs to 0 Gs back and forth. You're busy.
I can only imagine how much Purell they need for the back of that thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting ride back there. But in the front, you're so concentrated, you're so busy trying to stay within parameters, and the parameters are incredibly tight.
But again, you also know when you're going to hit the lowest point. So you're mentally somewhat prepared.
Oh, exactly. And you're so focused, you really don't think about, oh, yeah, I'm at 0 Gs. Oh, yeah, I'm at 2 Gs. You don't think about it at all. It's, oh, that was 40. Parabolas. We're done. Oh, okay.
So you're probably miserable to take like Disneyland or Disney World because all the rides aren't that exciting.
Right. Well, no, because I know exactly what every rivet's doing in that airplane, but I don't know where they've had that wild ride.
You don't know the last time they did a maintenance check.
Yeah, let me see the forms on that one. Let me talk to your maintenance guys.
So basically, it kept you here on the enticement of being able to fly all these cool planes.
I flew the shuttle trainer, so I've trained every shuttle crew that's flown, every one of the pilots, and then I also flew the people, in the back seat of the T-38, and they had a chance to. Oh, and I also flew the astronaut pilots in the front seat, but the mission specialists gave them all check rides, so we got a chance to train them all and get them up to a good high standard, probably the highest standard I've ever seen or heard of anywhere. Flew the 747. The shuttle carrier, was a captain on that, instructor on that.
That's got to be weird because it's like giving a big piggyback to how much does the shuttle weigh?
The heaviest one I flew was 248,000 pounds.
See, that's why I like talking to engineers and NASA folks, because when I ask them a question like that, then I'll go, a couple tons. 248, you've got the number, you got it down. I like you guys because you're very specific.
Well, it's it was 248, 214. Because we weigh it down to the pound. We don't kid around.
No, you don't, because you can't.
Yeah, we are dead serious. They said the airplane, the 747 is allowed to take off with 725,000 pounds. We do not take off with 725,001 pounds. We do not. We are deadly accurate with that.
Do they have to weigh the pilots before they go on too? It's like you look like you had a big turkey sandwich for lunch. You're gonna have to wait.
Yeah. Hey, mister, come here. Stand on that scale.
Hey, so it's like a weigh-in. I can only imagine Southwest, they kick you off if you look like you're 300 pounds. If you're like 1 pound over, you're off the thing.
Well, they just buy you another seat, and you go by the convertible side of the Southwest airplane.
There you go. Yeah. You got all the skinny people on one side, that one heavy guy on the left side.
That's it.
So you were there for 30 years, so that would be from 1980 to 2010.
Yeah.
So you've only recently left NASA.
Last June.
And was that just a straight out retirement? Was that you
retired? Oh yeah, that was. I had 41 and a half years of government service, and I said, okay, time for the next adventure.
Great.
Yeah.
And so what I know you do next, because we talked real briefly when we first started up, you're doing some safety things.
Yeah.
But you started to. When did you start writing when did the idea for the book start to form in your head?
Probably a lot of it started with talking with other science fiction aficionados, and we were lamenting that.
So you're a sci-fi geek like everybody.
Oh yeah.
I understand that they're all Trekkies over at the. And Star Wars and all that stuff. They love it, which is great. I do too. I'm a big science fiction person.
Yeah, if you walk around on site at Johnson Space Center and you don't get stabbed with a lightsaber, you're just not in the wrong place.
So you're only at the custom service area.
That's right. Those people, those are NASA light. But no, there's some engineers back there that will read you a chapter and verse. Oh no, that's not what Anakin said.
Oh, and they know every episode like on.
Oh yeah,
on episode 5 of Star
Clone
Trek.
Wars.
Yeah, they got the whole thing. Oh, great. Well, that's great because that's I think where a lot of the science comes from is from the love of what we don't know and what's beyond. And
absolutely.
So you're chatting with your buddies.
Well, and one of the things I was going to regress a second to NASA is you cannot come up with something until you visualize it first, and that's the beauty of sci-fi. Is if you're sitting inside of a small box and you don't think about rockets to space, the idea of a rocket to space first started where? It started before anybody really had rockets except for Chinese firecracker type rockets. And they said, well, why don't we, take this a step further. Let's go into space with it. Are you nuts? Those things blow up, But they said, no, we can control it. We can come up with a better. And this was 1800s. They were talking about it seriously. Most of the science for spaceflight and rocketry was developed in the 1800s, early 1900s.
It was all based on guns. I think the original one was like sending a big, huge, empty bullet.
Yeah, that was Jules Verne. Actually.
Right. Yeah. And then, also one of the movies they, in the early 20s when they started doing movies, they've got that picture of that.
The bullet.
The guy, whoever the guy is, the man in the moon. It's an actual person with a big styrofoam moon head, and then next thing you know, he's got a bullet in his eye.
A bullet in his eye, yeah. So, but Jules Verne on that one, for example, he put he had the science right. He put the
science right on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he put it at the Cape. Why? Because it sticks out a little bit, and juts out into the Atlantic, and it's close to the equator. He had a pretty good handle on things.
Yeah, he was. I think one of the reasons was in case there was a problem.
It lands in the water.
It lands. There's either side.
Yeah.
I mean, almost on three sides, because we don't really, at that time, I'm not sure we cared about Cuba
that's right.
as much as we do now. So you've got the idea, and you just started. Did you just start to write things down? Did you make an outline?
Well, we're lamenting around NASA, saying the science fiction isn't like it was back in the old days. Blah blah blah. And then my brothers and I, we're all sci-fi geeks. We sat around and our over scotch and cigars. Talking about what would be a good story.
I believe scotch and cigars is the fuel of the writer, as Hemingway would say.
Yeah, it's impossible without it. And so we get out there, and my brother, one brother's going, oh, it ought to be this way, and I'm going, oh, no, it can't be that way. It's it's got to follow logically, and you got to do it this way.
And that's the thing I was going to bring up is that first off, I was reading the book, and this is not a negative. You can tell an engineer, or at least somebody with some brains, wrote it.
You can tell an engineer, but you can't tell him much. Yeah.
You can tell an engineer wrote it because when they get into the details of the stuff, it all makes logical sense. I mean, you really do a great job, because I was reading it, and you get into some very technical, there's a lot of there's all kinds of things. You're talking about pheromones, you're talking about trajectories, you're talking about viruses, you're talking about all kinds. There's so many elements.
And it's got to all fit.
And that's the thing, is when you explain it, you kind of do it like almost like two ways. You kind of explain it in the technical version, but then you kind of sneak in it for the dummies like me. So we can kind of go, oh yeah, we know what he's talking about. That makes sense, because because these two people, Karen, is it Karen? Am I saying it right? But it starts with a C. Yeah. C-A-R-I, and Karen and Jake are the two protagonists. And Fred is, I wouldn't call him a protagonist yet. He's more of a sidekick, but he's going to be vital. He's been vital.
The second book, he gets
that's right.
Critical.
How many books?
It's a trilogy.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'm only at the first one, and like I said, I haven't finished it yet. I will have finished it by the time I post this. So I will talk about, not the ending, but talk about how what it's like. I'll give a full review at the time.
Okay, good.
But you've got the very technical. Now, a lot of that I can tell comes from your background.
Yeah.
Jake is a Air Force pilot or a former.
He's a Navy.
No, he's the submarine captain. Karen is the Air Force.
Yep.
But she's the Air Force. But she's also. Tell me the specialty that she does in her science. Machine intelligence.
Yeah, machine intelligence is what she did her doctorate work in. Which there's actually people that are doing PhDs in that now. And she started with geophysics and decided that she shouldn't.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. And she got away from geophysics because she couldn't be a rock hound, because bending down to pick up rocks hurt her back. And I knew one of the geophysicists, one of the lady geophysicists at NASA that gave me that complaint, and I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. Yeah. So I had to put that in the book.
I just don't want to do it because I don't want to hurt my back.
Yeah.
It's like I'm willing to sacrifice all these years of studying and sitting at a desk learning these things, which will probably kill your back more than give you carpal tunnel. But she didn't want to do it. That is funny. And so you've got her doing the machine intelligence, but she's and then you've got Jake. Like I said, he is a former
retired.
It seems like there might be more going on there that we don't know about, but and so you take a lot of what you know, but I can't believe you know all of this stuff, because like I said, you cover a lot of bases. What kind of research?
Oh, tons of. Well, the internet makes it easy to do research these days, and which makes me really mad when I'm reading somebody, Dan Brown, that
from New Hampshire.
Yeah, no kidding.
Concord, New Hampshire.
Concord. Yeah. And you get to some of his stuff, and a guy can knit a story better than anybody I know, but it would have taken you 2 seconds to get on the internet and get the facts right.
Yeah. None of that's. That doesn't. It's like almost like a certain news agency. It doesn't fit his narrative.
We won't talk about who that is.
No, but there's a certain, and there's more than one. So I'm not going to that's why I'm not going to name them, because there's more than one.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fit their narrative, and it didn't fit what he wanted. So, but he did a great job of netting the base pieces.
He put a story together that was unbelievable. It was great. But for somebody like me that I'm an expert in certain areas, and I stumble across that now. The suspension of disbelief has to be there. I have to be reading, and I have to say, I'm still with you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Like Fred, which stands for F word, ridiculous.
Friggin' ridiculous economic disaster.
Yeah.
And that was a real thing that happened.
The acronym or the actual?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, the original.
So we have supercomputers that they're not telling us about?
No, they didn't work.
Okay.
Yeah, but they only put a couple of $1 billion into them.
Oh, wow.
That was the old Star Wars efforts. But what they call technologically premature. We didn't have the smash to do it either in software or hardware. Nowadays, could we do it? We could get a lot closer.
Sure.
I don't think we're there yet. You do simple math and talk to guys that really know this stuff, and you have to have about X number of trillion connections in there to start mimicking true intelligence.
Well, I'm assuming you've got a lot of contacts in the scientific world in a variety. Working at NASA, you've got with a xenobiologist, I'm sure you've got a couple that you could get access to, even though that's...
And a submarine commander and a SEAL team.
So do you write the thing and then try to find the facts to fix it? Like, I've got this idea because at one point early in the book, so I'm not really giving anything away, there's this thing where we'll just talk about an asteroid of some sort hits.
Yes.
When our two protagonists are at the same place.
Yeah.
And they're the only survivors.
Well,
there were some, but they're the ones that stuck around more than a couple days.
Yeah.
And so something's happened to them, and they start noticing changes to themselves. And one of them is a heightened sense of sight, a heightened sense of smell, and also they talk about, because at the very, very beginning he's at a clinic, and he's trying to figure out what's wrong with him, and he's talking to a lady doctor, and in his mind, like most men, he's going, hey, she's kind of cute, and
something happens.
The pheromones, or that's what we're assuming,
Yep.
is because, like I said, it's early. It's the first dozen chapters, and you've got a lot of chapters, so I hope I'm not giving too much away. But we also want to pull people in because you've got like 11 chapters online on audio.
That's right.
So that are free. And we'll make sure they get all that information afterwards because I do want people to pick up the book. It's good. But the pheromones, is that something that you knew about, or is that something you said, I want to try this, and then I'm going to find out if I can go find the facts and then tweak it, or how do you do something that's out of your expertise?
Well, that I pulled in one of my brothers as a neurologist, and I said, okay, neurologist brother. And he goes, oh, no, we don't know a thing about that. And I go, oh, that's mine.
Oh, yeah. The less they know, the better off you are.
Yeah. So, I did some basic research, see what the state of the art is, what we really know up to this moment. And I made it true to that. And it turns out it was even more basic and more powerful than I thought. The story got stronger and it strengthened because of what I found out. So I just threw that in there as well.
Yeah, because you've got, like I said, it's amazing how many different expertises one person would need to write the book. Not only do you have just military things, but you've got some specific tactics because that's the one thing that drove me crazy, only because I'm an idiot, is they're always thinking like 7 steps ahead. And they're talking about the next 7 steps.
Yep.
And when I'm reading it, I'm going, I would have never thought of that. I wouldn't have thought the next step, which is the most obvious step, is always the next step. And they're like 7 steps ahead. It doesn't always go as planned, but at least they're thinking that far ahead. They're tacticians. Would you, and I don't want to give anything away, would you apply that to, because they were pretty smart people to begin with. You didn't pick 2 dummies as characters. They were
trained. The military trains you to do that. And the biggest problem most people have is thinking, oh, this is real or this is fake. Well, no, this is real. This is exactly the way you are trained. You never go into a combat situation without a plan. Now, no combat plan survives contact with the enemy. That's true. But now you've got contingencies, and you always know, I fall back. I'm going to plan A, plan B, plan C, wherever it's got to go. But if that's not planned out ahead of time, when the fur is flying, as they say, it's impossible to come up with a good plan. Any decision you make in those situations historically has shown that it's going to fail. So you better have your plan before you actually contact the enemy.
Well, and I appreciate that. As someone who writes on negativity and talks about failure being a natural part of life and actually good in many ways, because we did learn, even from Challenger, we learned so many things from that tragedy.
That's true.
Learning from failure. That's great that you think along the same lines I do. I just don't think that tactician-wise. I think, I need a backup plan, but not because I'm super tactician, because I assume it's all going to go to hell the first time around.
Well, to prevent that, that old prior planning prevents poor performance thing is exactly true. But I also tell people that nobody's totally worthless. They can always serve as a bad example for others.
There you go. So we got 3 books coming out. We got 2 coming. When's the next book coming out?
It was going to be a summer read. I think it's pushing a little later because this book has just been picked for the STAR program, which means it's done really well and everybody likes it, and they are going to re-release it with prettier graphics and new colors and the like. So I put a lot of effort into that, and it slowed me down on the second book's release.
Okay. So where can they find it? The book's on Amazon. I know that because I bought my copy from Amazon.
Amazon's the best place to go.
But like I said, you have, I think, 11 chapters in audio form.
That's correct. On CharlesJustiz.com.
And that's Justiz I-Z.
Yeah, Justiz.
Yeah, I'll make sure we put that up on the website for you. I really appreciate your time. I know you got to get out of here. I think you're going to Kansas, right?
Going to Kansas.
All right. Well, have fun out there in the Plain States.
Thank you.
Well, that ends another Reality Check with Craig Price. I want to thank Charles for being on the show. From what I understand, the book is going to be optioned for a movie, so look for that in theaters in sometime in the next couple of years. But also, the second book will come out soon. When it does, I'll make sure to tell you. You can always find us at realitycheckpodcast.com. Email me, Craig, at speakercraigprice.com with any comments or suggestions. Have a great week.